very good morning to one and all. This is Dr. Pragati Rawat, Senior Lecturer from the Department of Prosthodontics in Crown and Bridge, Subharti Dental College and Hospital, Swami Vivekanand Subharti University, Meerut. And today we will be having a discussion on major connectors in cast partial denture fabrication. So, as the name of the topic suggests, major and connectors. So, major means that it is a component which occupies the most part, and connectors, that means it is going to connect some part of the processes to other part of the processes. So to begin with, if we are talking about a removable prosthesis, so it is necessary that that prosthesis extend from one part of the denture wearing area to another part of the denture wearing area. What benefit it provides is that it helps in dissipating of the forces throughout evenly. So, when a prosthesis that can be removed from the mouth is used, the prosthesis must extend to both sides of the arch. This is going to enable the dissipation of the forces to both the sides evenly, so that maximum stability can be obtained. So, before going towards the major connector, we should briefly know about what are the components of a removable partial denture. So first is the major connector, which we will be discussing it in detail. Second is the minor connector. Minor connector are the prosthesis, which part of the prosthesis which is also going to connect one component to the other, but because they are minor in dimension, that is why they are called as the minor connectors. Third is going to be the rest seats. Next is the direct retainers, and lastly is the indirect retainers. So rest and rest seats are basically helping in providing support to the prosthesis. Direct retainers and the indirect retainers are basically the components which are going to provide the retention to the whole of the prosthesis. Lastly, there will be denture base and tooth or the teeth. So, coming to the definition, the part of the removable partial denture that joins the component on one side of the arch to those on the opposite side is known as the major connector. You can see it with the help of the arrow. It is joining one side of the component to the other side of the components. That is why it is called as a connector. Why it is called as a major connector? Because it occupies the maximum position in the prosthesis. So, what are the basic functions of the major connector? Since it is acting as a connector, so the first function is it is going to unify the major parts of the prosthesis. So first function is the unification of the major parts of the prosthesis. Secondly, when it is going to unify one side of the components to the other side of the component, it is helping in distribution of the forces, that is, it is helping in dissipation of the forces. Thirdly, minimizing the torque to the teeth while effectively controlling the prosthesis movement. So when the forces are dissipated evenly throughout, then it minimizes any kind of uneven force or torque to the teeth. Thus, the movement of the prosthesis is under our control. So what are the basic requirements of a major connector? Firstly, it should be rigid. Why? Because it is going to unify the one side of the components to the other. So it is very necessary that this component of the removable partial prosthesis should be rigid. Secondly, it should protect this associated soft tissue. Why? Because it is occupying the major portion of the prosthesis, and is the prosthesis which is going and is the portion that is going to be in contact with the soft tissue. Thirdly, it should provide a mean for obtaining indirect retention when indicated. See, basically we have a different type of indirect retainers when we have some amount of teeth present. But when the number of teeth present in the arch is less, then the major connector may act as an indirect retainer, thus providing retention to the prosthesis as well. So it should also provide a means for the placement of one or more denture bases. Why? Because it is basically forming the base of the metallic base. So the denture base should cover on that surface also. Lastly, it should also promote patient comfort. Why? Because it is coming in direct contact with the soft tissues. So whether in maxillary arch or in mandibular arch, there are certain parameters for deciding what should be the location of the major connector. So firstly, in the first figure you can see that you can see an arrow which is showing a 6 millimeter of distance. So the margins of the major connector, that is the anterior margin, it should always be 6 millimeters away from the interdental papilla. So it should be located far enough from the tissue to avoid any possible impingement. We all know in the interior area the rugae and the rugae is and the incisive papilla is present. So we do not want any undue pressure over that area. So we will provide a distance of at least of 6 millimeter from that area, so that there is no any kind of impingement to the soft tissue. The palatal major connector, we will be discussing about different types of major connector in detail later on. The palatal major connector should be at least 6 millimeters away from the gingival margins. See, if you can see, it should be 6 millimeters. Also, this margin should be parallel to the gingival margins. Okay. So, see, if you can see this 6 millimeter of margin, it is parallel to the gingival margin. So firstly, the distance should be 6 millimeter from the rugae or the interdental papilla or the interdental gingiva, and secondly, it should be parallel to the gingival area. The height of the floor of the mouth. So this is being talked about the mandibular major connector. The height of the floor of the mouth in relation to the lingual sulci is measured with the periodontal probe. So before deciding which kind of major connector we have to give in mandibular area, there is an important step that we have to take, that is we have to measure the height of the or the available lingual sulcus. So for that we measure it with the help of the periodontal probe, and accordingly we select the design of the major connector. So after we have measured the periodont with the help of the periodontal probe, we have measured the depth of the sulcus. We will transfer that on our diagnostic cast. So we will be dealing with the importance of this measurement later on. So relief should be provided for soft tissues under all the portion of the mandibular major connector in any location where the framework crosses the marginal gingiva. So it is important not only for the mandibular connectors, even for the maxillary connectors, there should be relief beneath. Next, the inferior border of the mandibular major connectors should be gently rounded after being cast to eliminate the sharp edges. So whether a maxillary connector we are talking about or a mandibular major connector we are talking about, the margin should always be rounded in order to prevent any kind of discomfort to the patient and to prevent any kind of impingement that can occur because of the sharp margins. Next, the borders of the major connector should run parallel to the gingival margins of the remaining teeth, whether in either in mandibular major connectors or in maxillary. In both the cases, they should be parallel to the gingival margins. Also, the gingival margin should be crossed at right angles to minimize the coverage to the delicate margin tissue. So, this margin, if we are talking about the arrow, you can see it should be at right angles in order to first of all minimize the coverage. When we are minimizing the coverage, then we are also minimizing any kind of impingement or discomfort that the increased margin can cause to the patient. So two functions are being talked about here. Firstly, to minimize the coverage, and secondly, to prevent any kind of impingement to the tissues. So in the first figure you can see the anterior border of the maxillary major connector should not end at the anterior slope of the prominent rugae. Just like we talked about, that it should be at least 6 millimeters away from the gingival margin. That is, it should not be ending on the anterior slope of the prominent rugae, because it might interfere with the comfort obviously, and secondly the speech. So what should be done? The anterior border of the major connector should be terminate at the posterior slope of the prominent rugae. So instead of instead of covering the anterior slope, we should make sure that the posterior slope is covered. See, in this figure, both the anterior as well as the posterior slope is covered, so it is maximizing the coverage in which is resulting in the patient's discomfort as well as difficulty in speech. In second figure, we have eliminated the coverage of the anterior slope, so only the posterior slope is being covered. So by doing this, we are preventing any kind of speech impairment in the patient as well as preventing any kind of damage. Next, the borders of the maxillary major connector should always cross the palatal midline at 90 degrees. So, if you can see, it should always be 90 degrees to the palatal midline. See, this border, this is the palatal midline, and the border should be always 90 degrees to this palatal midline. Okay, so to summarize here, we should keep this in mind that whatever design of the maxillary connector or the mandibular connector we are choosing, there are certain points which have to be kept in mind. Firstly, we have to ensure that our design should not be causing any kind of discomfort or impingement to the patient, or it should not be impairing in any kind of normal function such as the speech. So for that, what can we do? We have to ensure that the edges of the connector is rounded. It is not sharp. It is away from the delicate soft tissue such as rugae. So we have to ensure that the anterior border should be at least 6 millimeters away from the marginal gingiva. For that, we discussed that the most prominent rugae, most prominent rugae, only the posterior slope should be covered, and the anterior slope should be left uncovered. So these are the little bits of things that we should keep in mind while selecting the major connectors. So firstly, today we will be discussing about the different type of maxillary major connectors. So the first major connectors, right now I am just listing all the major connectors, then we will be discussing about them in detail one by one. So firstly is the single strap major connector. You can see there is a single strap which is running across the palate. Second is the combination of anterior and posterior palatal strap. That is, there are two straps, one in the anterior area and second in the posterior area. Third is the palatal plate. It is going to cover the entire palate. Next is the U-shaped major connector. You can see the shape of the major connector, that is why it is called as the U shape. Next is the single palatal bar. You can see it is a single palatal bar. There is a difference between strap and bar. We will be discussing it later on. And lastly, there are anterior posterior palatal bars. See, this is the anterior bar and this is the posterior bar. So firstly, we will be talking about this single palatal strap type of major connector. So it is the most versatile. Why it is the most versatile? Because it can be used in variety of cases. Secondly, it comprises of wide thin band of metal plate that you can see. This is a wide thin metal plate, and it should be at least 8 millimeter wide for rigidity. So the basic difference between a bar and a strap is that the strap is at least 8 millimeter wide, and if the this width is less than 8 millimeter, it is considered as a bar. So if we are talking about the palatal strap, single palatal strap, there is going to be a single strap which is going to unify the components from one side of the arch to the other, and its width should be 8 millimeter. Why this unit of 8 millimeter? It could have been 5 millimeters or 6 millimeters, but why 8? 8 because we require certain amount of rigidity from the major connector, because when we were talking about the ideal requirements or what are the ideal requirements of the major connector, we study that it should be able to unify the parts. So in order to unify the parts, the strength of that prosthesis or that part of the prosthesis is very important, or it is very essential. So 8 minimum width is required to ensure that it is going to have that amount of strength that it can transfer or dissipate the forces evenly across the prosthesis. So where it can be used? Because it is a single strap, so it is going to be used in the area where there are bilateral edentulous spaces of short span in a tooth supported restoration. Basically, a class 3 type of Kennedy's class 3 cases where these can be used. So what are the characteristics and location? So first characteristic is the anterior border. It should follow the valley between the valley between the rugae as nearly as possible at right angles to the median suture line. So we study that the border of the our major connector, it should be at 90 degrees to the median suture line or the mid palatine suture line. So firstly, it should be at 90 degrees. Secondly, it should always be covering or starting anteriorly from the posterior slope of the most prominent rugae. So it should be at right angles to the median suture line. Posterior border at right angle to the median suture line, because it is where the anterior margin of the major connector will lie. Strap, because it is a strap, it should be 8 millimeter width. As and or if we are not able to, if we see that it is a class C situation, both side edentulous spaces there, and the tooth are present adjacent to the edental space, both anterior and posterior, and if we see this span is is wider than the 8 millimeters, so we can adjust our width accordingly. So the strap should be 8 millimeter wide or approximately as wide as the combined width of the maxillary premolar and the first molar. So confined, it should be confined within an area bounded by the 4 principal rests. So whenever we are talking about a class 3 situation, class 3 Kennedy situation, and we are giving major connector the palatal strap which is extending from one side to the another, we must ensure that there should be rest on all the adjacent tooth or the supporting tooth, which is lying just adjacent to the edentulous area. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of this kind of palatal strap? First of all, it offers great resistance to the bending or twisting forces because it has a 8 millimeter width, so that is why it has strength. Disadvantages: patient may complain of excessive palatal coverage due to improper positioning of the strap borders. So we have to keep in mind where our anterior border of the palatal strap should lie, and accordingly we should give the coverage. Secondly, if we do not know or we do not have the idea where the anterior border and posterior border should lie, the patient might complain of excessive coverage, and thus that might hinder in speech or even cause discomfort to the patient. So it is very important that the clinician should have the knowledge of proper placement of the anterior as well as the posterior borders. So second type of maxillary major connector that we will be talking today is the combination. That is, it is combining of the anterior strap as well as the posterior strap. So you can see this middle portion is going to be free of any kind of prosthesis or any kind of metal. So this anterior strap, obviously because it is strap, the width should be 8 millimeters, and this is the posterior strap, the width should be 8 millimeters. So anterior component is a flat strap located as far posteriorly as possible to avoid rugae coverage and tongue interference, obviously to provide patient to keep in mind the patient comfort. And the posterior strap is thin and a minimum of 8 millimeter wide. Because it is a strap, so the width should be minimum of 8 millimeters. And it should be located far posteriorly as possible, yet entirely on the heart panel. So we have to keep in mind that we have to extend it posteriorly, but it should not be that much posterior that it will cause any gag reflex to the patient. So minimum width we have to ensure that it should be 8 millimeters and as far as posteriorly without causing any discomfort to the patient. So what happens is, what are the indication? So when numerous teeth are to be replaced and when palatine torus is present. So palatine torus is going to be present in the middle portion. So whenever we see there is a palatine torus which cannot be removed or the patient is not willing for the removal, we give this type of a design where we have anterior strap and a posterior strap. So in this case also, second in case in which we have there are large number of tooth that are to be replaced. So in that case also we can go for a anterior and posterior strap. So both anterior and posterior straps of this type of major connector should have at least 8 millimeters in width. So we have to keep this in mind that the minimum width required for a strap to be called as a strap is 8 millimeter. So advantages, it is providing rigidity to the supported tissues as well as the tissues as well as the tooth. Disadvantage, it might interfere in the phonetics. Why? Because if we are keeping the anterior border too much anterior, and we are giving up coverage to the rugae. Okay, so one thing that we should keep in mind, we can see that there are just two straps that are present, one anteriorly 8 millimeters and one here 8 millimeters, and we are saying that this kind of design is also providing rigidity to the processes. How it is providing rigidity is because of the L effect. So what is the L beam effect? So L beam is, you can see that there is an L that is formed by the borders of these processes. This L effect is going to help in providing the rigidity. So wherever you see any processes which is having this type of design, you can assume or you can assess that the rigidity is because of the L shape of this design. So this is called as the L beam effect, which is providing a rigidity to the connector or the prosthesis. So next is the palatal palate or the complete palatal coverage. So it is as the name suggests, this type of prosthesis is going to cover the entire palate. So it is because it is going to cover the entire palate, so we can assume it is going to be given in cases where we require replacement of large number of teeth. So in most situations it is given in which only some or all anterior teeth remain, but mostly the posterior teeth are being replaced. So class 1 arch. So class 1 arch is the condition in which posteriorly edentulous spaces are present bilaterally without any posterior abutment teeth. So class 1 arch with one or more four premolars, as you can see in the figure. You can see the first premolars are present and the rest of the posteriors are missing. So in this case, where large number of teeth are missing, we can opt for a major palatal, this type of palatal type of major connector. So when some or all anterior teeth are remaining and as well as the abutment support is poor and cannot otherwise be enhanced, so that is why this major connector with such a large dimension is given only to provide support to the remaining periodontally compromised teeth. Also, there are chances when the residual ridges resorption is also greater. In that case also, retention is very difficult to be gained from the remaining periodontally compromised teeth. In that case also, this major connector is going to provide indirect retention as well as it is going to support or support the remaining abutment teeth. So it can also be given in the absence of any kind of torus. Just like if we were talking about if any torus was present, we were considering anterior and posterior palatal strap, but in case there is no torus, we can easily go for this type of design. So what are the advantages and disadvantages? So advantages is that it is to be given when the posterior teeth are to be replaced, and this will help in providing additional stabilization effect when the minimum ridge height is available. That is when there is a chance that the resorption is greater and the periodontal status is very compromised. This type of design is going to provide extra stabilization and rigidity to the prosthesis. And disadvantages, because it has such a large amount of coverage, it can be very difficult for the patient to adjust, and the patient might feel very discomfort to the prosthesis. Next is the horseshoe type of prosthesis or the U shape of palatal major connector. So if you can see the design, it is called as the U shape, right? So this connector should be used only in those situations in which inoperable tori is extended to the posterior limit of the hard palate. So when we were talking about anterior and posterior strap, we were giving the giving it in the cases in which the palatine torus is present in the center. But if the torus is extending more posteriorly, then we cannot give a posterior strap. So in that case, we will be giving a horseshoe shape or a U shape of prosthesis or the major connector. So advantages, it is going to be given in cases where there is inoperable heart torus that is extending more posteriorly. And disadvantages, because it is least favorable. Why? Because it is a thin strap which is U shaped, so there is less coverage, the surface area is less, so rigidity is poor as compared to the other design. Also, it might impinge on the gingival tissue lingual to the remaining teeth. Because the rigidity is poor, it has a tendency to flex or deform. So you can see in the design, the prosthesis is extending on the lingual surface of the teeth. So it is going to hinder the, or providing, it can hinder the soft tissue and it can impinge them. So also that is why it is not very advisable to give this type of major connector. Next is a single palatal bar. So bar, why? Because it has a dimension of less than 8 millimeters. So it can be given in cases where the edenture, in class 3 cases where the edental span is less, either 1 or 2 teeth are missing, then there is no need to extend it to 8 millimeter of width. So in that cases we can go for a bar which has a width of less than 8 millimeters. So for a single bar to have necessary rigidity, it should have concentrated bulk. So one disadvantage you can say is because we are compromising on the width of the prosthesis or the width of the major connector, we have to increase the weight of the prosthesis so that the rigidity or the strength of the major connector is not compromised. So a partial denture with a single bar is either too thin and flexible, or it can be too bulky and objectionable to the patient. So if we are keeping in mind that we have to keep the width of the prosthesis very thin, then we have to increase the bulk, then that can be very problematic to the patient. But if we think that we have to also reduce the bulk and keep the width also less than 8 millimeter, then it is going to be flexible and the rigidity will be compromised. So advantages, it can be used for interim applications because it is very difficult to decide whether we have to keep the bulk or not, while keeping in mind that the width should be less than 8 millimeters. Disadvantage, if we are keeping it less than 8 millimeters, we have to increase the bulk, and that is going to be very discomfortable for the patient. Next is the anterior posterior palatal bars. So these are the bars, so that means their dimension will be less than 8 millimeters, and anterior and posterior, it will be present anteriorly as well as posteriorly. The rest of the function and the location and characteristics are similar to the anterior and posterior palatal strap. The only difference is in the dimension. So to be sufficiently rigid and to provide the needed support and stability, it can also be too bulky because we have to compromise the because in order to make sure that the width, because the width is less than 8 millimeters, so we do not want to compromise on the rigidity, so we are increasing the bulk, so that can be very uncomfortable for the patient and can also interfere in the tongue function as well as in the speech. So advantages, rigidity because of the L-beam effect. If you remember, we talked about it in the anterior and posterior palatal strap. It also, because it is just a strap which is less than 8 millimeters, so it is providing less soft tissue coverage, so it will be less discomfortable for the soft tissue beneath. But because we are increasing the bulk, it can be uncomfortable for the patient and can also interfere in the speech and phonetics. So this was all about maxillary major connectors. We will be now talking about mandibular major connectors. So firstly is the lingual bar. Bar or strap, whether given in maxillary and mandibular, the dimension may be different, but bar will always be thinner than the strap. Next is the lingual plate. You can see it is covering the cingulum portion of the teeth. Third is the cingulum bar. See, you can see it is a bar. Next is the lingual bar with cingulum bar, that is, it is a combination of a lingual bar as well as a cingulum bar. Fourth, next is the cingulum bar, it is going to extend on the cingulum. And lastly is the labial bar. that is going to be extended on the labial portion. So starting with the lingual bar, so the cross section of this type of major connector is half pear shape, and it should be contoured well, and the edges should be rounded, obviously, because we do not want to impinge on the mandibular sulcus or the floor of the mouth. So it should be made reinforced with the 6 gauge half pear shaped wax. There should be at least a minimum of 8 millimeters vertical clearance from the floor of the mouth. So how should it be 8 millimeters? Because 5 millimeters is going to be the width of this bar, and 3 millimeters should be the clearance from the gingival tissue. So a total of 8 millimeter clearance is required from the floor of the mouth if we are planning for this kind of connector. So where it can be used? Firstly, it can be used in which we have large amount of sulcus or the greater circular width or the height present. The lingual bar should be used for mandibular removal partial denture where sufficient space exists between the slightly elevated alveolar lingual sulcus and the lingual gingival tissue. Basically, if we have a large amount of height or the depth of the lingual sulcus, then we can go for this kind of major connector. So what are the characteristics and location? First of all, the cross section should always be pear shaped, and it should be bulkiest in the most inferior location. The bulk should be present in the inferior portion of the pear shape, and the anterior portion of the pear shape should be thin. So superior border located at least 3 millimeters inferior to the gingival margins, or if possible, and the vertical height of the finished lingual bar should be at least 5 mm for strength and rigidity. That is why 3 plus 5 is going to account for 8 millimeters of clearance. That is why we require 8 millimeters of clearance if we are planning for the lingual bar. So what are the advantages? It is very easy to fabricate because it is have a distance of around 3 millimeters from the gingival tissue. So it is and only 5 millimeters of width is required for it. So it is coming in minimum contact with the remaining tissue and the teeth, and so it is very easy for the patient to maintain the hygiene in such cases. But disadvantage is because the width is only 5 millimeters, it can be flexible, and in cases of a tori, we cannot give this kind of prosthesis or the design. So next is the linguoplate. So linguoplate, if you see in the figure, it is similar to the lingual bar, but the superior border, it is going to be extended up to the cingulum of the lingual surface of the teeth. So the superior border should be scalloped and should have an intimate contact with the teeth. So its width is increased. Also, it is going to be covering the cingulum portion of the teeth. So where can it be given? So because it is going to be in so intimate contact with the remaining teeth, it is going to be given in cases where we have a limited depth of the sulcus. That is why we are extending it upwardly, not downwardly. Secondly, in cases like class 1 cases in which the posterior teeth are missing and there are no bilateral posterior teeth are missing and there are no posterior abutment present. Also, in such cases, if there is a resorption of the ridges and the periodontal support of the teeth is not so proper, so in that case also, what happens, this kind of design, if you are giving, it is going to act as a splint. So it is going to cover the periodontally weak teeth, thus increasing the rigidity of the design as well as providing support to the remaining teeth and acting as an indirect retainer. So in such cases, what happens, it is going to provide the support to the remaining periodontally compromised teeth. So for using periodontally weakened teeth in group function and to furnish support to the prosthesis, it is going to help resist horizontal rotation of the distal extension type of denture. So when it is going to cover the cingulum portion, it is going to provide strength or a splint effect to the periodontally weak remaining teeth. So in such cases, when there is a splint effect, the horizontal forces or the detrimental forces that is going to fall on the prosthesis, it is going to be overcome, or it is going to be bear very easily by the remaining periodontally compromised teeth together. So advantages, because it is extending upwardly, therefore it has a rigidity. You can see the width of the processes is more than the lingual bar. It is going to provide indirect retention in case when the resorption is less, because it will be going to act as a splint on the remaining periodontally compromised teeth. So because in earlier slide we talked that it is going to cover the scalloping of the gingival tissue and is going to cover the cingulum portion. Patient find it very comforting because they think that the prosthesis or the this part of the prosthesis is very easily adapted to the remaining tissue. So because it is easily adapted or so closely attached or adapted to the remaining tissues and the teeth, it causes irritation of the remaining tissues. Also, because it is extending up to the cingulum portion, it can result in decalcification of the remaining tooth structure. So next is the sublingual bar. So there is a difference between a lingual bar and a sublingual bar. So it is nothing but a modification of lingual bar. The cross section is very similar to the lingual bar, that is, it is a bar shaped and it is placed more inferior in posterior than the lingual bar. Because it is sublingual bar, so that is why it is going to be extended more posteriorly into the sulcus as compared to the lingual bar. It is useful when the height of the floor of the mouth does not allow placement of the superior border of the bar at least 4 mm below the gingival margin. When we have active tissue on the floor of the mouth and it is very difficult for the superior border should be placed at least 4 mm below the or 3 mm below the cingulum portion or the gingival portion of the remaining teeth. In such cases, we are going to extend the lingual bar more posteriorly to prevent the action of those active tissues on this major connector. So where it can be used? Obviously in cases where we have ample amount of sulcus, and in cases in which where the sulcular tissues are very active and they are not allowing the lingual bar to be placed at least 3 mm or 4 mm below. So the sublingual bar should be used for mandibular removable partial dentures when the height of the floor of the mouth is in relation to the free gingival margins will be less than 6 mm. Also, it is indicated wherever it is desirable to keep the free gingival margins of the remaining anterior teeth exposed. Where it cannot be used, in which the remaining natural anterior teeth are severely tilted towards the lingual side. So because of this tilt, it is very difficult for the patient to wear it or to remove it. And also it is extending sublingually, so it is creating all the more problem. All the more distance it has to travel for seating and removal. So in cases where there is severely tilt of the lingual teeth or anterior lingual teeth, we do not give such kind of design. Advantage, it could be used in the place of a lingual plate when lingual frenum does not interfere or in the absence of anterior lingual undercut, and it cannot be used in case of interfering lingual tori or high lingual frenum. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of this type of design. Now the lingual bar with cingulum bar or continuous bar. So this design is comprising of two designs, that is, one is a lingual bar and next is the cingulum bar. So if it is a lingual bar, see, if you can see, there are two portions. The cingular bar, it is going to cover the cingulum portion, and the lingual bar, it is going to be placed in the at least 3 mm or 4 mm below the gingival margins of the remaining teeth. So you can see it is quite similar to the design of the maxillary major connector, the anterior posterior bar or anterior posterior strap, where one component is lying anteriorly and the other component is lying posteriorly. So it differs from the lingual plate that the middle portion is taken off. We will when we were talking about the lingual plate, we see that it is also extending the cingulum portion, and posteriorly it is extending to sulcus. This is also extending up to the cingulum portion, but this middle portion is not present. So this is the basic difference between the cingulum bar and the cingulum bar with the lingual bar and the lingual plate. So lower part, the basic construction is same. It is also the pear shaped. Upper bar is similar to the singular. The construction is similar to the cingulum bar, and the lower portion is similar to the lingual bar. So where this kind of design can be given. So when a lingual plate is otherwise indicated, but the actual alignment of the anterior teeth is such that the excessive blockout of interproximal undercuts would be required. So in cases when the lingual, we study that the lingual plate or there are certain design which cannot be given in lingually tilt of the teeth. So in such cases we can give this type of design in which the tilt is not going to interfere the seating or the removal of the prosthesis. So this kind of design will ensure that. So also when wide diastema exists between mandibular anterior teeth and the lingual plate would be objectionable display metal in the frontal view, because we know that a lingual plate is going to be extended. It is going to cover the entire the sulcus up to the cingulum bar, and if the diastema spaces are present, it will be very anesthetic in appearance. So if there is a diastema, we can give this kind of case because the middle portion is not there. And where it cannot be used, when anterior teeth are severely tilted to the lingual, when wide diastema exit between the mandibular anterior teeth and the cingulum bar would objectionably display. If the diastema is very wide, and even by giving this it is not being able to prevent any anesthetic appearance, then also this should not be given. Advantage, it will act as an indirect retention in the anterior direction, horizontal stabilization of the prosthesis because of the L-beam effect. It has because the middle portion is missing, so there is a tendency for the major connector to trap the debris. Next is the labial bar. As the name suggests, it is going to be extended labially. See, in the diagram you can see the portion is extending labially. It is used where extreme lingual inclination of the remaining lower premolar and incising teeth will prevent the use of a lingual bar. So in case of extreme lingual inclination, this kind of design can be given. So indication, when lingual inclination is very prominent, is very much, and it is very difficult for removal and seating. When single, if any kind of tori is there and it is not very easy to be removed, or the patient is not willing for the removal, then also we can extend the plate. Instead of lingually, it can be extended labially. And when there are undercuts that are present, soft tissue undercuts, then also the major canal can be extended labially rather than lingually. Coming on to the characteristics and location, again the basic design is the same. It should be half pear shape with the bulkiest portion posteriorly, and thinner is the anterior portion. And the superior border, it should be tapered to the soft tissue. The superior border should be located at least 4 millimeters. The criteria is same whether you are extending the major connector lingually or posteriorly. The distance between the soft tissue, gingival soft tissue, and the margin, it should be at least 3 to 4 mm. Inferior border, it should be located in the buccal or labial vestibule at the junction of the attached and unattached mucosa. So the level up to which the inferior border or the posterior border of the labial bar can be extended is at the junction of the attached and the unattached mucosa. Because if you are going to extend it more posteriorly or more into the sulcus, it is going to impinge the soft tissue and it might also result in mobility or the movement of the tissue while the any kind of function is being performed by the patient. So this was all about the major connectors, in which we talked about the maxillary connectors and the mandibular major connectors. There are certain requirements that are needed to be fulfilled by the major connector. There are certain ideal characteristics that should be kept in mind while we are deciding for the design which we are going for the major connector. And also it is a very important component of the cast partial denture fabrication, because it is occupying the maximum space, and also it is acting as a unifying factor which is going to unify one side of the components to the other side of the component. So it needs to be very rigid, and that is why we need to ensure that we have a proper knowledge of what kind of major connector we are selecting, whether we are giving it in mandibular or maxillary arch. So it is very important that the clinic should have basic knowledge of the location and the characteristic, as well as what are the ideal requirements and basic characteristic it should have. So that's it for today, and thank you very much.